solve quadratic equations by Sydney and Ori.
The standard form of the quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a, b, and c are all real, and a cannot equal 0.
There are 4 ways typically used to solve quadratic equations. They are the zero factor property, the square root property, completing the square, and the quadratic formula.
The zero factor property states that if a and b are complex with a, b equaling 0, then a equals 0 and or b equals 0. The first step of using the zero factor property to solve a quadratic equation is putting the equation in standard form. Then you factor. Once you have factored, you set each factored expression equal to 0 in separate equations, and then you solve each equation for x.
In this example, x squared plus 4x equals negative 3. You add the 3 to the side to put it in standard form, being x squared plus 4x plus 3 equals 0. Then you factor, and each of the factored expressions you set equal to 0. So x plus 3 equals 0 and x plus 1 equals 0. Then you simplify those, getting x equals negative 3 and x equals negative 1.
The square root property states that if x squared equals k, then x equals the square root of k, or x equals the negative square root of k.
In this example, x plus 3 squared equals 36. You simply square root both sides, resulting in x plus 3 equals plus or minus 6. Then you subtract the 3 and simplify, getting x equals 9 and x equals negative 3.
The process for completing the square begins with making sure that if a does not equal 1, then you divide both sides by a. Then you keep all x's on one side and the constant term on the other. Once you've done this, you add half of b squared to both sides of the equation. Then you factor and combine like terms, and then you use the square root property to solve the quadratic equation.
We start with x squared minus 4x minus 36 equals 0. You first add the 36, which is the constant, to the other side of the equation. Then you do 1/2 of negative 4, because that's b, and square that. So negative 4 over 2 squared equals 4. And you add that to both sides. Then you factor, and you get x minus 2 squared, and you simplify the other side, equaling 40. Then you square root both sides for the square root property. X minus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 40, and then you simplify to get x equals 2 plus or minus 2 to the square root of 10.
The quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all over 2a.
In our example for this, we start with 5x squared plus 7x minus 13 equals 0. We restate the equation for you, then substitute in the numbers for their spots in the equation. We then simplify and see that not all the time it results in a perfect number, because the square root of 309 is not a perfect number. But as simplified as we get x equals negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 309 over 10.
Thanks for watching.
The end. Okay, good.